poppin', you beautiful humans? My name is Ariane Andrew.
I'm Matt Dillon, and welcome to another piping hot episode of Sippin The Tea.
Where we sip the tea and I try to keep my dress down, okay?
Girl, I'm trying to keep your dress on, child. Lord, we're getting off to a good start this episode.
We have my little baby here, Glitty.
And we got Mama Dillon. But we got in the house today Mr. Denim Richards. He is an actor. You may remember him from YellowStone on Paramount Networks. But he is a man of many, many different things. And I'm super pumped to have you here, sir. Thank you for gracing.
How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah. Happy to be here. I'm excited.
Well, the dogs are happy to have you, and off camera.
This is the first time I've ever been in an interview with two dogs.
Listen, you're a dog man, no?
No, this is like heaven for me.
Yes.
So,
well, then you're a perfect guest.
Yes.
The whole interview should just be me talking to the dogs and having a dialogue with the dogs.
Works for me. Let's see what's popping.
That's what I do at home. We just have
You are
internal
hilarious.
conversations. It's ridiculous.
You're a fur daddy.
Yeah.
Five, right?
5.
5?
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
I
pretty
can
ridiculous.
dig it.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Well, I was going to say you should have bought him, but I'm like, that's a full house. So let's.
They demand all of everything.
That could have been a
would've
pussy
been
pop
pretty-
problem.
yeah, there been some smoke up in this place. Trust
That's
me. if
so
the dogs
funny.
come.
How do you do that though with acting and auditioning and on set and
Yeah.
being gone 24/7?
And you didn't film Yellowstone in LA, correct?
No, we film in Utah, Montana.
So five
yeah.
puppies. Where they at?
This is not great. So they're at my house. So thank God for like a doggy door.
Okay.
But yeah.
No.
Yeah.
He good.
Doggy door is essential. But no, I have like family and stuff like that. You know,
Gotcha.
that stay at the house and watch the dogs, and I can kind of check in on them, you know, when I need to. But it's very weird to like have this like very specific responsibility, and then you kind of leave. Last year, it was like the first day of pilot season. My oldest dog, Chloe, like she got pregnant or whatever before I had left. And then
It's popping on your
the day,
Right.
the day
Damn.
of pilot season, I had like 4 auditions in like 3 days. And I'm getting ready to walk out the door, and, you know, because I live in Orange County, and to drive up to, 405. And she goes into labor, like in my room. And I'm like, grabbing all my crap, making sure, drinking my coffee, and I'm on the thing, and I'm turning like, okay, cool. And then she's just shaking, and there's water everywhere, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So then, of course, for like, it was a good 2 hours, just delivering these puppies. And then it was like, okay, cool, she'll only have like 2 or 3. And then I'd be like, all right, great, now I gotta go, because, I'm calling my manager, telling her, like, I'm gonna be late, but you don't worry about it. And then another puppy would come, and I'm like, hey, she has 4. Like, it's enough.
She kept
going.
Okay. And then finally, like an hour later, she had 5. And then I was like, that's it. I'm sewing you up. Like, nothing else is
He's like,
coming
I got an audition. I gotta go.
Like, the responsibility was getting a little too much. So that was a very intense kind of like month and a half.
I mean, I'm
like,
sweating. I'm like, this
too.
guy's
Like,
trying to make an audition, and he's like,
Yeah.
shit, she coming, and it's coming.
She needed, yeah. So now I gave like 2 of them away, 3 of them away, and now I have the remainder, 3 of them, and then the 2 parents. So it's a full family.
Well, we bonded over the puppies.
And you seem like a person of love. You have a whole little pack of animals and the whole 9. So I just have to, just switch it over because I know you have your own nonprofit, which is Yes.
Yeah, Youth Empowering Success.
Yeah.
Yes. So let's discuss that, because I think that's amazing that you're giving back, and how you talk about how, children are our future. So how we shape them is how, our world turns into. So let's discuss that, because I thought that was amazing that you have your own nonprofit.
It's funny because it didn't really turn out like that. I think it was just kind of like in certain places that I kind of been to over the course of like kind of moving to LA, I've seen how many kids just don't have the same opportunities that others do. I grew up in Orange County, and so I was kind of shielded from a lot of that. But I was so like hungry to not have like being comfortable that I just moved when I was like 16, 17, and I moved.
That.
Like, I moved into the jungle or whatever, like off of La Cienega in Fairfax.
Where's the jungle out there,
And
Chad? I know.
It was pretty ridiculous. And I remember, like, walking to a 7-Eleven and kids throwing rocks at me. And, I would go and play basketball, like, on the streets, and the streets of playing basketball were completely different than Orange County. And it was like just a completely different experience. And then when I started kind of understanding the youth more and seeing, a lot of them, they just don't have, these kind of family structures, or a mom or a dad, or if they do, they're both kind of absent because they're working, they're on their grind, having to do their thing. And so a lot of these kids, they have to join gangs because they're looking for like a sense of community.
Correct.
And so a lot of it, it's like we look at them, we're like, oh, classic kid, he's in a gang, but we don't get to know anyone's story. And so that kind of got my juices flowing to see, like, if we could get to these kids earlier and kind of give them an opportunity to like start to bet on themselves and realize that you can do more than like being an actor or a basketball player or a rapper. And especially like in the African American community, that's kind of like the top 3 things when you're in the hood that they say, like, well, if you don't do these 3 things, it's pretty much done. It's like, and then, there's so much else to do. So we kind of started this thing, Youth Empowerment and Success, where we would just go into like Section 8 housing, and we would kind of gather up and see like how many kids were there. And then what we do is we bring them all to like their community center at the Section 8 thing for like 3-4 hours on a Saturday, and just have a dialogue with them of like, what would you want to see differently like happening in your community? Whether it be when you go to the market, do you want fresh food? Do you want less liquor stores and more produce? You know what I mean? Because if you go to a lot of these areas, there isn't access to a Trader Joe's or a Starbucks every corner. They're liquor stores or they're loan shark places. There's nothing that incentivizes you to want to like be better than that area because you don't see anything else. And so our whole goal is like, I am very firm believer that kids have a way of expressing themselves and they will tell you the truth because they don't really know how to lie yet.
Correct.
And so they want to express truth to you. And so, but the problem is when they kind of tell their parents or elders, the elders like, no, that sounds sensational. That's not true. And we've seen this with the reign of abuse that's gone on with many kids. And it's like, why didn't you tell us? Well, they tried. And so I wanted to really just sit down and just give them an artistic way, whether it be like through poetry or through singing, or just through written word, spoken word, of just telling us like, what do you see inside your community and what you want? And then our job after that is to kind of like reach out to city council members or whatever and try to invite them into this area and kind of put on a little performance for them where all these kids kind of get to express it and they can hopefully see it in a way that is like constructive and not in a way where it's like a kid is expressing themselves through, graffiti, like on the, on the back of a 7-Eleven where it's like, of course, that's bad. But it's like, look at their artwork in this very beautiful setting, and trying to give them a way to express themselves in a way that I feel is palpable for them. But hopefully, the adults will be able to see the same thing. So doing that was very fulfilling. And then I also started like coaching basketball and football at some private schools like in Orange County in the same areas, but not in like the wealthier areas. But I'm just a very firm believer that the kids need to just have more influence as far as like just believing in themselves and believing that they can do more things. That they can be scientists, and they can be doctors, and they can be lawyers, and they can change the world. And that just because we like kind of lionize our athletes and our celebrities, that's not the all and the end all to all things. So yeah. I guess it's kind of
that passion right
I
there.
was about to say you nailed something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The way he nailed on the head, though, I think to encompass what you just said, I really think it's like you nailed it because it's about giving a voice, allowing them to have dialogue, and having a platform to be able to have that back and forth to listen and to speak. And I think for me, that just like put the hairs up because I was like, that's life too, though. Mm-hmm. I think in the greater world where we're at right now, the discourse should be speak, listen, learn, and understand, and build and grow. And I'm actually just blown away because it's like, well, when do you relax? Because you're actually like, you just filmed season 2 of a hit TV show, which is coming back in summer, and I want to touch on that because I'm like, he just talked about all this amazing work, and I was like, well, hang on a second.
The whole
I want to.
Jack of all
so what was it like filming? I mean, opposite Kevin Costner. That's kind of, it ain't bad, son. It ain't bad.
Kevin is amazing. I have to say, it's usually there's some people that I know where it's like you feel like you have to lie, like it was really not that great, and then
he the bodyguard. He the bodyguard, motherfucker. Come on now.
He's one of the most intelligent people that I've ever met, and his artistry is so phenomenal. And just obviously in comparison to him, most actors that are with him don't have as much experience as he has. He's been doing it for so long. So kind of doing the show, it's funny because kind of hearing about Yellowstone beforehand, I had heard that he was like going to be an executive producer on it, but I didn't know that he was like on the show or whatever. And I kind of like plugged my ears because I'm the type of artist where it's like if I start to know what the overall product could possibly look like, I will then start to already manufacture the wins and losses in my head. Like, oh my God, imagine if I got this, then I would be doing this and I'd be with this person. And then I'm overwhelmed and I haven't even done the audition yet. So I'm like, the less you tell me, the less information you give me.
You're real. You're
the
real.
Better. Like, just give me no information and just make me go in there and just do this one specific job, because I don't have the capabilities of like reining it in. So if you had told me like Kevin Costner starring in it and it's gonna be Taylor Sheridan, who's like the Hollywood's next big writer, I would have just hyperventilated and just
He's like I got 5 dogs. I can buy him a house. I can do this.
Exactly.
It's gonna go well.
Exactly. Yeah. They're all gonna get driver's licenses.
Yes.
So it was like when we got there, we were doing this whole thing. We're sitting in this room in Montana. It was like we got there on the week. We had done a cowboy
Montana,
camp.
epic though, right?
Montana's gorgeous.
I've been once, and I was like, that's.
It's definitely middle of nowhere.
Oh yeah.
We shoot in this very small town in Montana, and there's 2,000 people in this town, so it's super small, but it's so welcoming and amazing. And we're sitting in this ranch, and we're sitting around the table, and then like we're all eating food, and then like Kevin walks in, and we're all like talking, like, oh yeah, just that. And then we're like, and we're just kind of like everyone is just like, oh, he's gonna be here with us. Like we're gonna have like a dialogue, and he's gonna sit and do. So like I just sat there, and I was like, wasn't starstruck, but it was like how big of a presence he was, but how personable he could be at the same time. And it was so like weird for me to kind of be around somebody that was so successful, but then was also like, oh, but I also want to talk to you. And I'm like, why? Like I'm not even like, who am I?
That's how it should be though.
No, it should be. Yeah. But you don't really see that a lot.
Nor do you hear that.
Yeah.
Nor do you hear that. Quite honestly, I'm like, there's something a vibe about him that I get, and like hearing you say that to me,
he has that Southern California
makes me feel good.
Cool and relaxation thing. And we're sitting around, and we kind of go around and tell everybody like our names and our characters, and we do just a basic introduction. And so then we kind of break, and we're gonna do our first rehearsal because the next day is the first day of filming. And we're all packing up our stuff, walking out. Oh, shit, let's go across. And we're getting ready to walk out, and he goes, "Hey, can I just, stop everyone for a second?" And we're like, "Yeah."
Stop dead in your tracks.
So we're like, "Yeah, like what's up?" He was like, "I just want to say, this is the first day where we're all kind of getting introduced to each other, and tomorrow's gonna be our first day of filming." He's like, "So I don't know about you guys, but like I'm super nervous about tomorrow. Wow. And I just want to let you guys know, like, if you guys are super nervous as well, like we're all in this together, and that like we need to lean on each other and like be a team. And so like the whole goal to make this thing successful is to feel like we can just ebb and flow with each other." And like instantaneously it became like Kevin Costner, like, oh, that's Kevin, to like, oh, that's just a dude, and that's the type of person you really want kind of like leading a show like that, of somebody that's like, I have a tremendous wealth of experience, but then also at the same time, I still want to learn, and so it was a pretty really phenomenal like first day. And ever since then, every time I kind of go on set, he's giving me some kind of advice. And even when we're sitting there, if we're shooting with 3 or 4 cameras sometimes just to get different wide angles, he would just be like, hey, just, he nudge me, hey, Denim, just ask them when your shoulder comes in. And I'm like, what? Like, who cares when my shoulder comes in? But I'm like, okay. But then when you realize, like, oh, because it's important to kind of know body structurally where you are from camera to camera, from frame to frame, from which setup, and you start to kind of get into this. He's so cerebral in his art, So it's just been, I feel like as an artist, I went from like, a couple years of experience, like 20 years of experience like that, just sitting there and learning from him. So it's really been a blessing. Like I couldn't have asked for anything better. I'm
super excited for you. And I think, your depth of work though, you've done a lot leading up to this, but I love your approach and the way, the kind of gratitude that I can see in your eyes.
Yeah.
To really, you've taken this in. And I think that pairs nicely with the work that you're doing with Yes, because you are that to those kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that, at a young age and a breaking point in your career, it's so nice to see you you're learning from somebody that you've looked up to, and now you're becoming that for somebody else. And I think that's a lot to take on your shoulders. Plus 5 dogs.
No, but we need
you best watch that. You best not get. You best tie them shoes so there's no more puppies.
My pups.
You got time? You ain't got no more time.
I know, my pups. I love them.
I live for this.
This is great, though. It's good to see like genuine people who are helping
Win.
others, because
A win.
we've all been
Good-
there.
good
Everyone
people.
had to like start somewhere where you needed that person to give you the yes or give you the guidance, and it's very like uncomfortable when you're trying to make a way, but then it's like the person you're working with is like, well, let me treat you like doo-doo because I had to go through it. It's like at some point, when does the domino effect stop?
Right.
So I appreciate like what you're doing and helping these young kids as well, because it's like it has to start somewhere. Someone has to be the voice of reason.
I want to touch on your production company too, because you're a man that creates your own opportunities too.
Yeah.
If the door ain't gonna open, honey, you gotta knock it down, right?
Yeah.
That's your. I like that quote.
If you don't build your own door, you'll spend the rest of your life building someone else's.
It's true. It's very true. It's funny. So Laser Focus Productions, LFP, again, that started, when was it, 2012, when I was trying to make this transition from musical theater.
Yeah. Which we haven't even cracked that surface. This guy's got many chapters, let me tell you.
We ain't gonna have enough time for
You can come back anytime.
we already going overtime right now.
Don't you worry, we got you.
But yeah, I was trying to make this kind of transition, and I could not book anything in television or film or commercially because I was so big. And like, in musical theater, you're just kind of over the top sometimes because you have to project all the way in the back. And
Correct.
When you're kind of in these, television,
we want to hear you back here.
It's just, it's small. I mean, you're on a camera, and I'm already naturally can be very vivacious and just kind of like very. I know.
Really? I'm shocked. Are we in the same interview here? What's poppin'?
I really got to tune it.
I was like, come on, pump it up.
But yeah, so it was always like hard because I was like, I've done that for so long, and then I would just be excited, and so then getting in there, it was just like he's just so big, and I was like, I don't know what this means, so I guess I'll just create my own content. So I just kind of got together with a couple of my friends, and I was like, what's exciting? Like watch TV, watch YouTube or whatever. And this is kind of in 2012, YouTube had just kind of started to really start to crank up its content as far as like episodic type of things, but it wasn't really big yet. And so we kind of sat together, and I was like, well, what things can we do? So we kind of worked on some like short films or whatever, just writing. And it was really just, in the beginning, it was just trying to build a community. And I think that really was what it started as for me, like somebody that grew up doing sports. It was like not doing sports anymore. You kind of don't get the community, that feeling of like brotherhood and camaraderie. And that was something that was always important to me, to be able to have this kind of synergy or whatever. And so we kind of started doing that. And then I had this idea of sitting down with one of my friends. We were at a BJ's, I think, in Long Beach. And it was like every Sunday we would sit down and we would just throw ideas at the wall and be like, we have to find something amazing. And like that was the only thing that was important. So for like 2 hours, we'd be sitting in this huge restaurant, and football and basketball games are going on, and people are yelling and screaming. We're like, no, we're gonna change the world, and
it's like in the bubble.
Like we're gonna do it at this table, and we're like, okay. And I'm just sitting there. We can't find anything.
That's the greatest way things happen.
Well, that was the thing. And so we kind of would spitfire these ideas, and then finally, I had gone home and I had watched this show or this movie, Schindler's List or whatever.
What?
Small film, marginally successful. Probably I've never heard of it.
No.
Y'all need to get correct.
And I was looking at it and I was like, what? I was like, at the end of it, there's like 6 to 10 million people. It says, that were in the Holocaust that died and all this other stuff. And so I was like, it's really interesting. And I've always been a huge World War II type of person. And so at the end of it, I called my friend and I was like, I got an idea. So went back to the thing and I was like, African Americans in the Holocaust. And my friend was like, what do you mean? And I was like, that's the film. And he was like, I don't think that happened. I was like, give me a month. And I was like, because if I can just find one, I'm going for it. So I shut down everything, called my manager. I was like, don't talk to me. No one talked to me. I'm done. And I just dove into research, like hundreds and hundreds of hours. And finally, I found, I was calling these universities, USC, UCLA, all over the country, calling all these things. And finally, I found a person that had a book, and it was called like Germany's Black Holocaust. And I was like, bring it. So I ordered it, book comes, and I'm reading through this thing. And finally I find this picture of these 3 African Americans in the Holocaust, and I was like, I have my story. And from there, just kind of locked in, started writing, and then that's kind of how like the laser focus started to kind of expand. And yeah, so it's kind of that.
You smashed that door down there.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm gonna smash it down.
So
and
yeah, it kind of became this thing where it's like now we wanted just to create original content, but something that was meaningful. And again, that's something that's not that you can learn from, that helps you expand your mind and
True.
really make you question and want to have more information. And we have enough stuff in entertainment where you don't really have to think. And I'm much more of a person that like wants to think. And so I want to create content that kind of forces a dialogue and forces a conversation.
I say
Do a little cheers.
Me
on
too.
that
I'm
one
gonna have to
because
choose it
that-
because I think I've never actually met somebody that like everything they do is very aligned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Very aligned, and it's all revolved around ebb and flow of conversation.
Yeah.
And allowing people to learn and listen, and
yeah.
I'm inspired, brother.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You gotta tell everybody right here.
where they can find you, follow you.
Okay, Denim Richards. So everything is just at Denim Richards. Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Pretty simple.
Ladies, jump in that DM because he's gonna be a motherfucking superstar. I said it.
On that note, guys, you can follow me across the board at Ariane Andrew. This one at Glitty Lit.
I'm Matt Dillon. You can follow me at Matt Dillon 1983, and we're not gonna wake the beast because she's looking over there and she's like, "Hey, boo."
Okay, guys, on Focus TV Network. Until next time, we'll catch you next week for Sippin The Tea.
Cheers it out. Thank you so much for joining us, man.
Yes. Cheers.
Yeah, you got the wrong number. Click.